Why do so many people, even intelligent, motivated, well-intentioned individuals, keep repeating the exact same self-destructive patterns? Why is it so devastatingly common to start something with genuine enthusiasm, only to abandon it halfway through? Why do we sabotage healthy relationships that could fulfill us? Why do we procrastinate on our most important goals? Why do we make decisions that we know with absolute certainty will harm us, and yet we continue making those same choices again and again? The most common answer you'll hear is this: lack of discipline, laziness, insecurity, low self-esteem. But this explanation is wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. According to neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, author of Behave, The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst, self-sabotage is not a character flaw. It's not a moral failing. It is a neurological conflict, a biological battle being fought inside your head between two brain systems that have completely different, often opposing goals. On one side stands your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved part of your brain, responsible for rational thinking, long-term planning, and self-control. On the other side lurks the limbic system, the most primitive and instinctive part of your brain, programmed by millions of years of evolution to seek immediate pleasure and avoid any kind of discomfort at all costs. And in this silent war happening inside your skull every single day, the limbic system almost always wins. This is not metaphor, this is not psychology, this is neuroscience. Your brain has been shaped by millions of years of evolution to ensure your survival in ancestral environments where danger was constant and immediate, where tomorrow was uncertain, where planning for the future could get you killed today. In such a brutal scenario, the brain that acts quickly, avoids visible risks, and rewards immediate impulses is the one that keeps you alive long enough to reproduce. The problem is that in the modern world, this same brilliantly designed survival brain becomes an internal saboteur because it still reacts as if you were fleeing from predators, when in reality you're just trying to write an important email, start a personal project, or have a difficult conversation. The most disturbing part of this reality is that your brain's survival system was never designed to help you achieve dreams. Your brain is not primarily concerned with your happiness, your sense of purpose, or your self-actualization. It is ruthlessly optimized to keep you safe and comfortable in the short term. And that is precisely why you fail repeatedly, not due to weakness or lack of character, but out of obedience to a brain that is operating with outdated evolutionary software. In this video, we will take a deep dive into the actual workings of the human mind and understand with scientific precision why we self-sabotage, even when we desperately want to change. We will explore the neuroscience behind procrastination, impulsivity, and decision fatigue. And, most importantly, we will discover how to strategically hack this system, not with heroic willpower that always fails eventually, but with strategic environmental intelligence. Because if you keep fighting directly against your own brain, you will lose every single time. But if you learn to intelligently redesign the battlefield, manipulating the variables that shape behavior, you can finally stop the cycle of self-sabotage. This video is not just a warning about what's happening inside you. It is a survival manual for those who live in constant war with themselves. Most people live with a comforting illusion that there exists a coherent, unified self in control, a rational mind that observes reality, makes decisions, and acts with awareness and logic. This narrative is comfortable because it's simple. It supports the idea that we are autonomous beings, complete owners of our thoughts, behaviors, and choices. But according to Robert Sapolsky and other leading contemporary neuroscientists, this view is a simplistic construct that doesn't match reality. The truth about your mind is much more complex and infinitely more uncomfortable than you've been told. The human brain is not a unified entity with one executive making decisions. It is a colony of competing modules, systems, and circuits that constantly battle each other for control of your behavior. You do not have a single brain making unified decisions. You have multiple neural systems operating simultaneously, often in direct conflict with each other. And this internal multiplicity, this civil war in your skull, explains perfectly why you can say with complete sincerity that you want to change, but keep repeating the exact same destructive patterns. Why you plan with genuine intention to wake up early to work out, but when the alarm sounds, you hit snooze without thinking. Why you promise yourself you'll focus for just 2 hours, but end up compulsively checking social media every few minutes. It's not because you are weak. It's not because you lack character. It's because different parts of your brain have completely different agendas, completely different goals. And the faster, more automatic system almost always wins the race. Imagine this scenario happening inside your head right now. Your prefrontal cortex, the most recently evolved part of your brain, genuinely wants you to work on that important project. It has a long-term vision. It understands that completing this project is essential for your future success and fulfillment. But at the exact same moment, your limbic system, a much older and more primitive neural structure, detects even the slightest hint of discomfort, boredom, mild anxiety, uncertainty, and it immediately, automatically triggers a powerful desire to escape. Maybe watch a YouTube video, maybe grab a snack, maybe just quickly glance at notifications. The impulse doesn't pass through rational deliberation. It emerges from the depths and dominates your behavior before you even realize what's happening. Because the limbic system is dramatically faster, infinitely more automatic, and has millions more years of evolutionary training time perfecting its responses. Sapolsky's research shows that the reaction time of the limbic system is measured in milliseconds. It has already triggered an emotion, generated an impulse, and created a behavioral response before your conscious awareness even knows what's happening. When your prefrontal cortex finally attempts to intervene with rational thought, it's already too late. The self-sabotaging behavior has occurred. And then another neural circuit immediately activates: rationalization. Your brain instantly invents a plausible story to explain why you couldn't do what you intended. I'm too tired today. I'll definitely make up for it tomorrow. It wasn't that important anyway. I work better under pressure. Your brain is not just sabotaging your actions, it's systematically deceiving your conscious awareness, creating false narratives that protect you from recognizing the pattern. This internal conflict is not rare or abnormal. It is the fundamental basis of the human condition. Freud attempted to capture it with his concepts of id, ego, and superego. Jung called it the shadow. Today, neuroscience reveals that this conflict has a concrete physical basis. It is a clash between brain regions with genuinely opposing evolutionary functions. The problem is that our entire culture has educated us to believe that wanting to change is enough, that willpower is everything, that if you just try hard enough, you can overcome any obstacle. But when you understand that there are multiple competing selves within your mind, each with its own agenda, you realize that self-sabotage is not a moral error or personal failure. It is simply internal neural architecture fighting against itself. This understanding changes everything about how you approach change. Because as long as you continue believing that simply deciding to change is sufficient, you will keep feeling frustrated, defeated, broken. The key insight is this: there is no sovereign unified self making all decisions. There are competing parts of your brain that need to be understood, managed, strategically redirected. And this requires more than raw willpower or motivation. It requires intelligence, strategy, environmental design. But what caused the human brain to be structured this way in the first place? Why do we have such contradictory systems operating simultaneously? The answer lies deep in our evolutionary past. If this content is making sense to you, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue creating content like this. To genuinely understand why we sabotage our own goals with such consistency, we need to face a profoundly disconcerting truth. The brain you are using today was not designed for the life you are trying to live. It is the biological product of millions of years of adaptation to a world that no longer exists. This fundamental mismatch between your brain structure and the modern environment you inhabit is one of the central causes of chronic self-sabotage. For the vast majority of human existence, spanning hundreds of thousands of years, we lived in hostile, unpredictable, and brutally dangerous environments. Survival was the absolute and only priority. Our ancestors were not trying to be productive, creative, or emotionally fulfilled. They were simply trying not to die, to not starve, to not become prey. And for that singular purpose, the brain developed lightning-fast response mechanisms: fleeing immediately from threats, seeking food when available without delay, conserving precious energy whenever possible, avoiding any unnecessary risk that could lead to injury or death. These behaviors, which we now label as impulsive or self-sabotaging in modern contexts, were absolutely functional, perfectly adaptive for survival in environments of extreme scarcity and constant danger. Now, Contrast that with modern life. You no longer need to hunt for food or fear starvation. You do not live under constant physical threat from predators. You can safely plan months or years ahead without immediate danger. But your brain continues operating with the exact same ancestral neural circuits, the same threat detection systems, the same reward-seeking impulses. When you try to start a long-term project, maintain a disciplined routine, or develop a complex skill that requires sustained effort, you are demanding that your prefrontal cortex take complete control of your behavior. But this system, despite being evolutionarily advanced, is slow, metabolically limited, and highly vulnerable to fatigue. Meanwhile, the limbic system, which evolved to seek immediate pleasure and avoid immediate pain, reacts in milliseconds and makes decisions before you even realize a choice is being made. Sapolsky emphasizes this crucial point. Your brain did not evolve to ensure your success, happiness, or personal fulfillment. It evolved purely to maximize your chances of immediate survival and reproduction. This means that the most powerful, most automatic circuits in your mind are not remotely focused on what will benefit you 5 years from now or even 5 months from now. They are exclusively focused on what will relieve your discomfort right now, in this present moment. Your brain strongly prefers the quick dopamine hit from a like on social media to the quiet, slow progress of meaningful work, the numbing comfort of procrastination to the productive but uncomfortable state of creative effort. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, across hundreds of thousands of years, today has always been infinitely more important than tomorrow. Tomorrow you might be dead. Today you need to survive. This phenomenon has a specific name in evolutionary biology: evolutionary mismatch. We are living in a world of unprecedented abundance, but we're doing it with a brain that was meticulously programmed for scarcity. We are constantly bombarded by stimuli notifications, ultra-processed foods engineered for maximum palatability, infinite entertainment options that exploit exactly the same neural circuits that once ensured our survival. Self-sabotage, when viewed through this lens, is not a malfunction of your brain. It is the perfect functioning of a system brilliantly adapted to an archaic and hostile world, being forced to operate in an overstimulating and cognitively demanding environment it was never designed for. And this mismatch influences not only what you choose to do, but fundamentally how your brain values different types of rewards. Your neural reward system literally places dramatically more value on immediate, tangible pleasures than on abstract future achievements. This phenomenon is called temporal discounting, and it is directly controlled by dopamine, the neurotransmitter that dictates what your brain wants to pursue at any given moment. Imagine you face two clear options right now. You could work on a challenging project that might genuinely transform your life within a year, or you could watch an episode of your favorite series immediately. You know intellectually which choice would be more beneficial in the long run. You understand the logic completely. Yet something powerful within you pushes relentlessly toward the easier, more comfortable, instantly gratifying path. That invisible force has a name: dopamine. For decades, dopamine was popularly called the pleasure neurotransmitter, as if it simply made you feel good. But modern neuroscience, as Sapolsky makes abundantly clear in his work, reveals a more accurate and far more concerning truth about how dopamine actually functions. Dopamine is not primarily about pleasure itself, not about the experience of enjoyment. It is about the anticipation of reward, about motivation and desire. When you feel a sudden urge to do something, eat something specific, check your phone, buy something online, open the refrigerator for the 5th time, even though you're not hungry, it is dopamine triggering that impulse, that wanting. And crucially, dopamine is radically systematically biased. It strongly prefers rewards that are immediate, tangible, and easily accessible over rewards that are distant, abstract, or require sustained effort. This phenomenon is called temporal discounting, and it's one of the most powerful forces shaping your daily behavior. Your brain literally discounts or dramatically reduces the subjective value of a reward as it moves further away in time. In other words, the farther away the gratification exists in the future, the less it is actually worth to your dopaminergic reward system. A piece of chocolate available right now has vastly more neurochemical impact, more motivational power than losing 5 pounds 3 months from now. A short, entertaining video available this second generates more immediate dopaminergic activation than studying consistently to change careers over the next year. This is not a failure of self-control or discipline. This is a deeply rooted biological bias embedded in your neural architecture. Sapolsky demonstrates that the dopamine system evolved specifically to favor quick decisions in unpredictable, dangerous environments. On the ancient savanna, full of threats and uncertainty, it was far more adaptive, more survival-enhancing to immediately consume a ripe fruit you found than to wait for an uncertain hunt that might happen tomorrow or might never happen at all. Today, in the modern world, this exact same neural mechanism makes you compulsively check social media every few minutes, makes you jump restlessly from task to task, makes you abandon long-term commitments when they become uncomfortable. We have become collectively addicted to dopamine spikes, to that feeling of wanting and getting in rapid succession. And the entertainment industry, social media platforms, and ultra-processed food manufacturers all understand this biological vulnerability better than most individuals understand it about themselves. They deliberately design products and experiences that hijack your reward system, exploiting these ancient circuits with cheap, instant gratifications that your brain cannot resist. And here is perhaps the most perverse aspect of this system. The more frequently you give in to immediate dopamine hits, the more powerfully your brain learns and reinforces that this is the correct path, the right way to behave. It strengthens those neural connections through repetition. It creates automatic habits. It makes the behavior unconscious. Over time, conscious choice is no longer even necessary. You are self-sabotaging on complete autopilot. And what once began as a deliberate decision has become a reflexive response. You don't even consciously notice when you're doing it anymore. Dopamine is not only sabotaging your individual goals, it is actively shaping who you are becoming as a person. What patterns are being encoded into your neural structure? But if dopamine is so powerful, so automatic, how can you possibly resist it? How do you break this cycle of immediate reward seeking and re-educate your brain to value what truly matters for your long-term well-being? The answer is not in willpower, which always fails eventually. It lies in the intelligent design of your environment, in what behavioral scientists call friction engineering, and in the strategic use of dopamine itself against its own impulses. There exists a deeply rooted idea in our culture, reinforced constantly by motivational content, that success, productivity, and self-control depend solely on willpower. That if you want something enough, if you resist temptation enough, if you push yourself with Spartan discipline, everything becomes possible. But modern neuroscience, especially the research by Sapolsky and others, dismantles this romantic illusion with surgical precision. The uncomfortable truth: willpower is a severely limited resource. And if you rely primarily on willpower to overcome self-sabotage, you have already started losing before you begin. The prefrontal cortex, the most sophisticated part of your brain responsible for self-control, planning, and moral decision-making, operates functionally like a muscle. And like any muscle, it becomes fatigued with use. With every decision you make, every impulse you resist, every task you force yourself to initiate, this system consumes metabolic energy and approaches exhaustion. This phenomenon is known as ego depletion or willpower depletion. In simpler terms, the more you need to actively decide and control yourself, the weaker your capacity for control becomes. And the weaker it becomes, the greater the probability that the limbic system, the emotional, impulsive brain, takes complete control of your behavior. Sapolsky explains that throughout a typical modern day, your prefrontal cortex is relentlessly bombarded by hundreds of micro-decisions. What to wear, what to eat, how to respond to each message and email, how to handle constant interruptions, whether or not to click that link, resisting the urge to check your phone every 5 minutes. All of this consumes precious cognitive energy, depleting your mental reserves. And by the end of the day, when you should ideally be focusing on your most important goals, studying, writing, training, creating something meaningful, your rational brain is already completely drained. Not because you are weak or undisciplined, but because your prefrontal cortex has been exhausted by hundreds of trivial decisions. And this exhaustion is not merely psychological or imagined. It is physiological, measurable. Studies demonstrate that during periods of intense mental effort and decision-making, glucose levels in the brain actually drop. The prefrontal cortex literally runs out of fuel. When this happens, the limbic system, which requires far less energy and operates automatically, takes over by default. This is why you can have perfect discipline in the morning and completely collapse into self-sabotage by evening. This is why you can resist junk food all day but cave in at night. This is why you can focus intensely for a few hours, but then lose all control and binge on distractions. It's not a character flaw. It's neurological depletion. And here's the most important insight. If you structure your life in a way that constantly forces your prefrontal cortex to fight against your limbic system, you will always lose eventually. Willpower is not infinite. Discipline is not limitless. Self-control has a breaking point. And the modern world is specifically designed to push you past that breaking point every single day. So what's the solution? The solution is not to develop superhuman willpower. The solution is to stop relying on willpower altogether. Instead, you need to redesign your environment in a way that makes good decisions automatic and bad decisions difficult. You need to create what behavioral scientists call friction barriers that make self-sabotaging behaviors harder to execute and remove friction from productive behaviors. Because when you change the environment, you change the behavior, without needing willpower at all. If willpower is unreliable and your brain is wired against you, what actually works? The answer lies in a concept that is both simple and profoundly powerful: friction engineering. Friction, in behavioral science, refers to the amount of effort required to perform a behavior. High friction equals difficult to do. Low friction equals easy to do. And here's the key insight. Your brain will almost always choose the path of least resistance. If checking social media requires one tap, and starting your important work requires opening multiple apps, finding files, and overcoming mental resistance, your brain will choose social media every single time, not because you're weak, because your brain is designed to conserve energy and seek easy wins. So instead of fighting your brain's nature, you work with it. You strategically manipulate friction. For behaviors you want to eliminate, increase friction. Make them harder to do. For behaviors you want to cultivate, decrease friction. Make them easier to do. Let me give you concrete examples. Example 1, social media addiction. Instead of relying on willpower to resist checking your phone, you delete social media apps from your phone. High friction to reinstall. Use website blockers during work hours. Put your phone in another room while working. Turn off all notifications. Now, to check social media, you have to get up, walk to another room, unlock your phone. Remember what you were going to check. By the time you've done all that, your prefrontal cortex has time to catch up and ask, wait, do I actually want to do this? Example 2, healthy eating. Instead of relying on willpower to resist junk food, don't keep junk food in your house. High friction to obtain. Prep healthy meals in advance. Low friction to eat well. Put fruits and vegetables at eye level in your fridge. Hide or remove unhealthy options. Example 3, exercise. Instead of relying on motivation to work out, sleep in your workout clothes. Low friction to start. Put your gym shoes by your bed. Join a gym that's on your daily commute route. Schedule workouts with a friend. Social commitment adds friction to skipping. The principle is simple. Make the right choice the easy choice. Make the wrong choice the hard choice. Sapolsky's research supports this completely. When you remove the need for active decision-making, when good behavior becomes automatic and bad behavior requires effort, your success rate skyrockets. Because you're no longer fighting your brain. You're designing your environment to work with your brain's natural tendencies. This is not about becoming lazy or avoiding responsibility. This is about being strategic. You have limited willpower. Use it wisely. Don't waste it on battles you can avoid by changing the battlefield. And this brings us to the final critical piece. Understanding that sustainable change is not about one heroic effort. It's about small, consistent environmental modifications that compound over time. One of the most damaging myths about change is that it requires massive, dramatic transformation. People believe they need to completely overhaul their lives overnight, wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for an hour, work out intensely, eat perfectly, be maximally productive. And when they inevitably fail to maintain this impossible standard, they conclude, I'm just not disciplined enough. I'm broken. But this is exactly backwards. Real, lasting change doesn't come from heroic efforts. It comes from tiny, almost invisible modifications that accumulate over time. Sapolsky emphasizes this in his work. The brain changes through repetition, not through intensity. Small, consistent actions rewire neural pathways more effectively than occasional bursts of extreme effort. Think of it like this. If you do one push-up every day for a year, you'll build more strength than if you do 100 push-ups once and then quit. If you write one sentence every day, you'll finish a book. If you wait for inspiration to write 10 pages at once, you'll never finish. The compound effect is the most powerful force in human behavior change. Small improvements, 1% better each day, don't feel significant in the moment. But over time, they create exponential results. Here's how this applies to overcoming self-sabotage. Instead of, I'm going to completely eliminate social media and be 100% focused from now on, try, I'm going to put my phone in another room for the first hour of my workday. That's it. One small change. One piece of friction added. And once that becomes automatic, once it no longer requires willpower, you add another small change. Maybe you block social media sites on your computer during work hours. Then maybe you establish a rule. No phone in the bedroom. Each change is tiny. Each change is manageable. But together, over weeks and months, they completely transform your behavior. This is how you hack your brain. Not by fighting it directly, but by gradually reshaping the environment until the behavior you want becomes the path of least resistance. And here's the beautiful part. As these small changes accumulate, your brain starts to change at a neural level. New habits form. New neural pathways strengthen. Old self-sabotaging patterns weaken from disuse. You don't become a different person overnight. But 6 months from now, a year from now, you look back and realize you're no longer fighting the same battles. Not because you developed superhuman willpower, but because you stopped relying on willpower altogether. So here we are. You now understand what most people never realize. Self-sabotage is not a personal failing. It's a neurological conflict between ancient survival systems and modern demands. You've learned that. Your brain is not a unified self, it's multiple competing systems. The limbic system almost always beats the prefrontal cortex in direct combat. Dopamine creates a powerful bias toward immediate gratification. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes quickly. The solution is not more discipline, it's environmental design. Small, consistent changes compound into massive transformation. But most importantly, you've learned this. You can't fight your brain directly and win. But you can strategically redesign your environment to make your brain work for you instead of against you. This is not about becoming someone you're not. This is about understanding who you are at a biological level and working with that reality instead of fighting it. From this moment forward, every time you catch yourself self-sabotaging, don't ask, why am I so weak? Ask, what environmental change would make this easier? Because that's where real power lies. Not in heroic willpower, but in strategic intelligence. And if this video has opened your eyes to how your own mind actually works, subscribe to this channel. We're just getting started. Your transformation doesn't begin with a dramatic decision. It begins with one small environmental change. Make that change today.